What a spectacular day this is. What a day to pay attention to. But what exactly are we celebrating today? According to much of the United States, today is Super Bowl Sunday, of course. What else? Even those of us without a dog in the hunt have noticed the drama. And even those of us who don't care for football might care for the annual outpouring of new television commercials. And as for those of us who care for neither football nor commercials, well, we still know that something spectacular is occurring. But wait. There may be another reason we are paying attention to this day. Those of us in the Christian church know this day, February the 2nd, as a special feast day. Today is the feast of the presentation of Christ in the temple when he was 40 days old, according to traditions. Mary and Joseph take him to the temple. Jesus is revealed as a light to the nations, the light of the world. I, for one, am thrilled at this confluence and coincidence of celebrations. I'm glad that the Super Bowl occurs so closely to the feast of the presentation every year. My wager always in Las Vegas is that fewer than 10 professional football players have ever used the words Super Bowl and Feast of the Presentation in the same sentence. Hey, while we're at it, let's throw in Groundhog Day. Groundhog Day actually falls upon one of the major feasts of the church, this feast of the presentation. Finally, our church has also called this day Candlemas. I believe that all these events have something in common. They are ways that our community, our civilization, hopes for life and yearns for light in the midst of winter. Let's start with the Super Bowl, where much of our North American culture will be focused today. Consider the gatherings, the parties, the festivities around Sunday night. This is ritual at its most primordial. People plan schedules and change behavior and spend their resources for this event. In my book, this behavior is exactly the definition of a religion. You don't have to tell anybody in the SEC that. The powers that change your schedule and order your lives, and to which you offer your money, are usually what we call gods. It's a religion. I will not dwell on its low points today, but at its best, Super Bowl religion shows us the fruit of discipline and respect, and yes, even advertising creativity. The Super Bowl usually falls right in the middle of winter in North America. So does February 2nd, the Feast of the Presentation. The day falls almost exactly halfway, midway, between the winter solstice and the spring equinox. Though winter officially begins on December 21st, it's rarely as cold then as it is in the middle of winter, about February 2nd. And thus, our ancestors realized and devised all sorts of midwinter feasts and festivals to remind them that spring was coming. Christians began to observe this midwinter day as the purification, or the Feast of the Presentation. According to tradition, this young child, Jesus, was to be presented in the temple 40 days after his birth. But it's the tradition of Candlemas, using candles, that comes closest to recognizing what is really going on in our natural world. There really is no clear church history tradition of how candles became associated with the presentation. My sense is that candles just happened. So I let that tradition be. There's no official, acknowledged beginning. Thus, I believe it simply has to do with our yearning for light in the middle of winter. On February 2nd, Christians began to light candles. Today, at Christian churches across the world, people light candles and walk in procession. They walk toward the light, even in the deep midwinter, as we will here at the cathedral this afternoon at the 4 o'clock service. Something in our human condition will always long and lean for light. We yearn for its energy, especially when we miss it the most in the bleak midwinter. Somehow or another, strangely enough, our secular Groundhog Day is also associated with this longing for light. We are wondering just how long it will be before spring comes. Will the groundhog see his shadow or not? Is there sunshine on Groundhog Day too early or not? I'm glad that I have no idea whether all the bellwether groundhogs across the country have seen their shadows today or not. Instead, I carry around a handy little poem, a little ditty poem, which I always use when the weather turns unpleasant. Whether the weather be mild or whether the weather be not, whether the weather be cold or whether the weather be hot, we'll weather the weather, whatever the weather, whether we like it or not. No matter who actually wins the Super Bowl tonight, all of our country is strangely warmed on Super Bowl Sunday, gathering in parties, watching festivities. But in the Christian church, we are celebrating the light of the world. And today, just as people are making one last run to the grocery store, stocking up for the Super Bowl game, many Christian churches will observe Candlemas and the presentation. We will light every candle we can find, a ritual that symbolizes the light of Christ in the world. It is still wintertime, but today our world has turned toward spring. Yes, there will be more cold snaps. We know there may even be an ice storm. But the earth has now turned around the sun toward spring. The church hopes the same thing about life today. Perhaps our health is bad right now. Perhaps our finances seem bleak right now. Maybe we are frustrated and disgusted by our national politics. Maybe it is winter. But in this darkness, God turns toward light, toward health. I encourage us then to present ourselves to this God of light. And like Mary and her husband Joseph, to present ourselves and our offspring to God in the holy temple today. Come to that place, the church, which has preserved and proclaimed light even during the darkest times. Light your candles today, whether literally or figuratively. Sometimes it seems we are waiting an eternity for the darkness to dissipate. It looks like Simeon, and certainly Anna, had been going to the temple for many years, searching, before they finally recognized that light had come. Maybe like waiting for the groundhog to come out in the winter. Maybe like waiting for our home team to get to the Super Bowl. Maybe like yearning for our particular political persuasion to prevail. But we are speaking of the light of Christ. Bigger, of course, so much larger than our games and even our politics. It was the light of Christ who came to Simeon and Anna. The light of Christ comes to the faithful. And the light of Christ also comes through the faithful. One of the great ways that Jesus described himself was as the light of the world. But Jesus also told us that we ourselves are the light of the world. It's not Groundhog Day or Super Bowl Sunday that brings true light to the world. It's not even the great traditions and customs of the church, though each of those events plays its part. The true light is us, you and me, and how we behave during all these events. Jesus said, "You are the light of the world. Let your light so shine before others that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven." Amen.